Welcome to Cetacean Sessions.
All right. Hello, everyone. I hope you can all hear us. And I see so many people coming from all over the world. It's so cool. So welcome to Cetacean Sessions and welcome to the first episode of Season 3. We're quickly going to introduce ourselves because maybe you guys don't know us. So I am Anais, and this is...
Hi, I'm Naomi.
So we're both in charge of whale scientists. You've probably seen us somewhere on the internet at some point. And Whale Scientist is a platform where we share the cool research done on marine mammals pretty much everywhere in the world. And we're both PhD students, so we try to do that on during our free time. And yeah, we're very, very excited that Acta Ethologica asked us to organize Cetacean Sessions this year. So yeah, I'm going to give a quick introduction of myself and then Naomi, and then we'll introduce our guest of honor for today. So my name is Anais. I currently live in Montreal, where I do my PhD, and I work on killer whale feeding ecology and contaminants in the North Atlantic Ocean.
Hi, I am Naomi. I'm currently in Lafayette, Louisiana, so kind of the opposite of where Anais is. And I work on bioacoustics of marine mammals in the Gulf of Mexico, specifically the sperm whales, and looking at their time budgets.
Awesome. So now I'm going to introduce Anna. So I will bring her camera. Hi, Anna. So Anna is a PhD student at the University of Iceland. She is also a researcher for the Icelandic Orca project. I personally met Anna last summer in Iceland, and I was fascinated by her incredible research that she does in Iceland, and that's why we wanted to start Cetacean Sessions this year with Anna. So yeah, I think Naomi and I will let you start your talk. And we're very excited. Before we started the talk, before I forget, I'll remind everyone of how this works. So for all the people that are on Crowdcast, if you have a question at some point, you should have a little button at the bottom of your screen saying ask a question. And then you can ask a question anytime, and then anybody can upvote or downvote a question. And then once Anna's presentation is finished, we can answer all the questions together. So we'll obviously start with the questions that have been the most upvoted. And the person who asked the question will have the opportunity to come on the stage with us. So we'll send you an invitation to appear on the screen. If you do not wish to appear on the screen, that's totally okay, and you can just reject the invitation and we can ask the question for you. But if you're happy to appear on screen, then you should just click on accept and hopefully everything works, and you will be able to converse with Anna directly. So when one person is talking to Anna, we'll also invite the next person, just so you know your video and mic will be muted until you can ask your question. So I hope that made sense for everyone. And then for the Facebook people, we managed to make it work, which is amazing. We're monitoring the chat, so don't worry, we'll also pay attention to you guys. However, we cannot invite you on the stage from Facebook. Sadly, that's impossible, but we'll make sure to ask your questions if they're not already asked on Crowdcast. So yeah, that's it for us. I think Naomi and I will just mute ourselves and let Anna talk about her awesome research.
All right, oops. I'm gonna try to start by sharing my screen, but now everything's gone. All right, Anais, can you let me know if that looks okay for you now?
That looks wonderful.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, so thank you, Anais and Naomi, for inviting me and for introducing me. I'm very excited to talk to you guys today about some of my PhD research. So like Anais mentioned, I'm a PhD student at the University of Iceland, and I also work with the Icelandic Orca project. And today I will present to you a paper that is part of my PhD as one of the PhD chapters, and it's on pilot whales and killer whales, their occurrence in Iceland, and also their interspecific interactions. But I thought I will use this opportunity to introduce the Icelandic Orca project to you, because maybe you're not so familiar with this project when you're from other parts of the world. So the project was started in 2008 by one of my supervisors, Dr. Filippa Samara, and it has become the longest running killer whale research project in Icelandic waters. The project started with a focus on acoustics, but as you can see from these nice photos from our fieldwork, we have now expanded to include all aspects of killer whale lives. So we do photo ID, we do prey sampling, we do tagging. We also look into stable isotopes, pollutants, behavior, really everything that you can think of. And we have also started to expand to other species. So for example, the pilot whale, but we also started to look into humpback whales and blue whales that are showing up in our research site. So our main research site is an archipelago in the south of Iceland called the Westman Islands, or Vestmannaeyjar. And you can see that in this picture here. But we really do work all around the country, and we collaborate with other researchers all around Iceland as well. So since the project started in 2008, we have seen killer whales in the Vestmannaeyjar every summer. But in 2014, the team had a bit of an unusual field day. So the day started like the perfect research day, really. The water was flat, and it was a very nice day. The team was out for many hours. There were a lot of killer whales around. They were taking photographs and doing acoustic recordings. But just as the team was about to head back to the harbor, they saw some splashing and some smaller dorsal fins in the distance. And it turned out that these were pilot whales. And that was super exciting at the time, because the species had never been seen in this area before. But this unusual sighting quickly became quite common. So in the following years, we have been seeing pilot whales every summer. So that's really where this whole project started, or this whole interest in the pilot whales started. And so today I'm going to be talking about this, the research from this paper that was published last year in Acta Ethologica. It's open access, so if you scan the barcode, you can access the paper to read it and download it, and you can also access some of the supplementary material. So yeah, the paper is titled "Occurrence of Longfin Pilot Whales and Killer Whales in Icelandic Coastal Waters and Their Interspecific Interactions." And as you can see, it's not only me who's been working on this topic, so there's a whole bunch of co-authors that have helped me with this research. Since we have quite a diverse group of people listening, I thought I will just quickly introduce the two species that I'm talking about today. So the killer whale, most of you might be familiar with. It's an apex predator. So it feeds on a variety of prey as a species, but the local populations can be very highly specialized. So some killer whales only feed on marine mammals. Others feed mostly on fish, and some specialize even on specific types of fish. They are widely distributed in the world's oceans. So on this map, you see that they can be found in all the world's oceans, but they are more common in the dark blue areas, which are the coastal waters and more cold and temperate areas. For the pilot whale, there are actually two species of pilot whale. So there's the short-finned pilot whale and the long-finned pilot whale. The short-finned is mostly found in tropical and temperate waters, which is indicated here in the light blue on the map. And the long-finned pilot whale is found more in the cold, temperate, and subpolar regions in the North Atlantic and also in the Southern Ocean. And so that's the species that I'm going to be talking about today when I speak about pilot whales. It's the long-finned pilot whale. And they mostly feed on fish and squid. And as you can see from these maps, the two species, they do have some overlap. And one of the areas where they overlap is Iceland, which you can see in this little orange box. And so now we're going to zoom into Iceland. So what do we know about the two species in Icelandic coastal waters? Well, for killer whales, we know that they are regularly seen in the Vestmannaeyjar region, which I just mentioned to you. So that's the small archipelago here in the south of Iceland. And then they are also regularly seen in Breiðafjörður in the west of Iceland. And these are known herring spawning and overwintering grounds. So we know that a large part of the killer whale population around Iceland follows the herring year-round. But we also have some killer whales that we only ever see in one of the two locations. And for some of them, we know that they migrate to Scotland. But for others, we don't really know where they go for the rest of the year. For pilot whales, we don't really know very much at all about their occurrence in Icelandic coastal waters. We know they do occur, but their occurrence is quite irregular and variable between years. And some older papers that looked at catches and strandings indicated that they were mostly found in the southwest, the west, and the northwest of the country. But we don't really have any recent data. We did have in the last few years a couple of mass strandings though. So there was one in 2019 and another one in 2021. And these tend then to make it into the local newspapers, as you can see on these images. But yeah, again, overall, we don't know very much about their occurrence in coastal waters. So that was the first aim of our study, was to describe the occurrence of the two species in different coastal regions around Iceland. And for killer whales, we were especially interested in these areas outside the known herring grounds. And for pilot whales, we knew very little about their occurrence in any of the locations. And what is very interesting is that in other areas in the North Atlantic, where the two species co-occur, they commonly interact with each other. So such interactions have been observed in Norway and in Spain in the Strait of Gibraltar. And these interactions are kind of puzzling because the pilot whales approach the killer whales, and the killer whales avoid the pilot whales, and sometimes they even flee at high speed. There are no reports of pilot whales predating on killer whales, and also killer whale predation on pilot whales is relatively rare. In Iceland, for example, it has only been reported once, a potential predation event. And playback experiments have shown that pilot whales are strongly attracted to the sound of killer whales, and they will approach these sounds and they will increase their group size. So this is really the only marine mammal species that we know that is attracted to killer whale sounds. All other species that have been tested to date, they tend to avoid killer whales. So these interactions are clearly very interesting. And so our second aim was just to describe them here in Iceland and to describe them in a bit more detail than what has been done before. To do that, we used data collected from research projects and whale watching tour operators in 6 locations around Iceland. The data was collected between 2007 and 2020. So in the whale watching locations, usually you have a guide or a researcher on board that takes notes on the species that are sighted, and sometimes also on the behavior. And then in Vestmannaeyjar, in our research site, we had small boats going out, and we also had a land observation station. So the first thing that we looked at was when the 2 species occurred and when we had any effort. So this graph looks quite complicated, so I'm going to try to walk you through it. I hope you can see the pointer, but let me know if you don't. So on the x-axis of this graph, you have the year. So we start in 2007 up all the way to 2020. And then each line on the graph is one of the locations that we looked at. So for example, the first one is Vestmannaeyjar in the south. So that's here. And then we go clockwise around the country with the other locations. The dashed vertical boxes here, they indicate the summertime, so between June and September. And right now you can only see the effort. So the gray areas indicate times that had effort, and the gray line indicates how many days of effort we had per month. So for example, you can see that in Vestmannaeyjar, we mostly work in the summertime. But for example, in Faxaflói, which is the bay close to Reykjavik, it has a lot of tourism activity, so it has almost year-round whale watching going on, so we have almost continuous effort. But again, you can see that the effort tends to go down in the winter and then up again in the summertime. So you can see that the effort varied, and that's just because this was quite opportunistic data collection. But then the next thing that we did is we calculated the percentage of days with effort that included sightings of either species. So first we will look at the killer whales. So the killer whales were seen year-round, but there was some variation between regions. We had regular sightings in Vestmannaeyjar and in Breiðafjörður. And in Vestmannaeyjar, they were mostly seen during the summertime, and then in Breiðafjörður, they were mostly seen during the winter and spring. And in all of the other locations, the sightings of the species were relatively rare and could occur at any time of the year. We didn't observe an increase or decrease in sightings over time also in killer whales. Now we're looking at the pilot whales here in orange. So we can see that they were only seen in June to September. So all of the sightings are inside these dashed boxes. We have regular sightings in Vestmannaeyjar, in Breiðafjörður, and in Steingrímsfjörður. And again, in all the other locations, the sightings are relatively rare. The occurrence of these of the pilot whales increased in all of the locations except for Steingrímsfjörður and Skjálfandi, but this increase was only significant in the 2 southernmost locations, so in Vestmannaeyjar and in Faxaflói. But what I just wanted to point out to you is that the two locations that had the highest sighting rates of killer whales, so Vestmannaeyjar and Breiðafjörður, also had very high sighting rates of pilot whales. And these are also the only two locations where we saw both species within the same day. And whenever we saw them within the same day, interactions were very common. So these interactions, they occurred on about 70% of the days where the two species were seen simultaneously. That was on 20 days in Vestmannaeyjar and in 4 days in Breiðafjörður. And in all of the interactions, the pilot whales were moving towards the killer whales, usually at very high speed. And the response of the killer whales varied. So in very few cases, they showed no visible response, but we mainly saw two different types of avoidance response that we named the avoidance and high-speed avoidance. So avoidance was when the killer whales were just moving away from the pilot whales at like a moderate to slower speed, or sometimes they would just dive and we wouldn't see them for a while, and then they would show up some distance away. But in some cases, we observed this high-speed avoidance, and that's when basically a chase between the two species ensued. And both species were going at very high speed. And the way we determined the higher speed was by using the porpoising behavior. So porpoising, for those who don't know, is when the whale comes out of the water with the head first. So like you can see in these pictures. And it's been shown that this is energetically advantageous above a certain speed. And it's also very easy behavior to observe, and it's usually quite well noted, it was quite well noted even in some of the older data we had. So it was a very good indicator to use for speed. We were scoring only the strongest response for each interactions, but the interactions were quite complex. The pilot whales sometimes approached several times. It was possible that the killer whales kind of tolerated their presence. So the response of the killer whales was not always in the same way. And I just wanted to illustrate that to you with an example observation that we had in our field site in Vestmannaeyjar in July 2019. So on the right here, you can see an image of the archipelago. And you see this is the main island here. And where the little red cross is where our land observation is. And on the map on the left, you also see the red cross. So again, that's where the land observation point is. And then in gray, you see the small islands indicated. So on this day that I'm talking about, we had a team on the boat, and we also had a team on land that was tracking whales using a theodolite. And the pilot whales approached in total 3 times. The first 2 approaches were observed from land, and the last one was observed from the boat. So this is these are the tracks from the first approach. So the line with the triangles are the pilot whales, and the line with the dots are the killer whales. So around just after 12 o'clock, we spotted a group of pilot whales, and we saw that they were here on the eastern side, and we saw that they were heading in a straight line to the west. And shortly after, we saw a group of about 5 killer whales, and we started to track them as well. So the pilot whales were a relatively small groups. We counted 11 individuals, and they were heading towards where the killer whales were. At some point, they were moving away a bit, but then they circled around and came again straight towards where the killer whales were. And at this time here, 13:35, they actually got very close to where the killer whales were because they were just over here. But then they just turned again and they started heading away. And then around 2 o'clock, we lost sight of them. But about an hour later, we saw actually two groups of pilot whales this time. There were about 50 in total now. And again, they were coming from the east side. And again, they were heading towards where the killer whales were. The problem for us from the land station was that these islands here were kind of in the way, so we couldn't really see the killer whales all the time, and we only managed to get this one position of them here. But they were kind of coming in and out from the islands the whole time. So again, the two groups of pilot whales, they were heading towards the killer whales. Here they were kind of mingling for a short moment, and the two groups joined. But then again, they turned and started heading away. So at that point, or shortly after, I think the land station team finished their efforts and they left. But then the boat team had been out the whole day. So here you see in the orange dotted line, you see the track of the boat during that day. And they had been with 4 or 5 groups of killer whales in this area here, more or less the whole day. From land, we couldn't really see them very well because they were hidden behind the islands. But yeah, we knew that they were around here somewhere. And around 4:35, the boat spotted what they estimated to be between 80 and 100 pilot whales approaching from the east. And there was one group of killer whales that had 6 individuals that initially turned towards the pilot whales, but then started to move away. And then one of these high-speed chases ensued. We don't have tracking of the whales during this time, but the boat was going sort of parallel to the killer whales, so we can use the boat track as an approximate track of the killer whales, and that's what you see in the solid orange line. So you can see that in about 9 minutes they moved quite a long distance, and they moved clearly away from where they had been hanging out the whole day. And here we have a video that was taken from the boat on that day. The footage is a bit shaky, and I hope it's going to work through your various internet connections. If it doesn't, you can scan the barcode and watch it on your phone, or you can go to the supplementary material of the paper, and there you can also find it. Just gonna see if I can make it work. Okay, so there you saw the killer whales, and there behind is the pilot whales coming, all this splashing. And you can see that they're going pretty fast. And yeah, you could clearly see this porpoising behavior. So during this 9-minute time frame, the boat was consistently going at about 15 kilometers an hour, so that's 9 miles per hour, and it reached maximum speeds of 25 kilometers per hour. So that's a bit over 15 miles per hour. So yeah, they were going really, really fast. And one thing that you might have noted in the video is that the group of killer whales is relatively small. There were about 6 individuals, I think, and there were a lot of pilot whales. So that's one thing that we noted, that the pilot whales tended to be in very high numbers all the time. So we were looking at the differences in group size for when we saw no interaction compared to when we saw avoidance or this high-speed avoidance. So here you can just see the average number of killer whales in the dark gray and pilot whales in the light gray. And you can see that when this high-speed avoidance occurred, the number of pilot whales was much higher. We did try to look at this a bit more statistically as well, but the sample sizes are quite small, so some of the results weren't very clear. So we need to collect a bit more data on that. Okay, so what did we learn? So we learned that pilot whales occur in Icelandic coastal waters during the summertime. They are most frequently seen in the south, the west, and the northwest. And their occurrence increased, and it increased particularly in the south. And these areas are areas that are close to where high occurrence is observed in offshore waters. So it is possible that these pilot whales are coming from offshore waters and they are coming into the coastal waters due to changes in their prey. The main prey of pilot whales around Iceland is thought to be squid. And squid undergo extensive migrations for feeding and spawning, and their occurrence is very irregular, and it's very influenced by environmental conditions. And so in some years that are so-called squid years, we can have large aggregations of squid around Iceland, the Faroes, and also around Norway. And in the Faroe Islands, these years are also associated with higher catches of pilot whales. And a few of the older studies from Iceland also suggest that the catches and strandings may be associated with the irregular migration of the squid. So it is possible that we have observed a period of high squid abundance, which has led to higher occurrence of pilot whales in coastal waters. But one of the problems is that we currently know very little about squid distribution and occurrence in Icelandic waters. So we can't really draw any firm conclusions on that. But this is something that we are working on right now. We have started some collaborations to investigate squid distribution and also their trophic relationships around Iceland. Another possibility is that the pilot whales are following mackerel. So we know that in other locations in the North Atlantic, mackerel is an important prey for pilot whales, but it's not known to be a prey in Iceland or in the Faroe Islands. But mackerel abundance has increased dramatically in Icelandic waters between 2007 and 2014, and it's still at relatively high levels. But again, we don't know for sure. So it's something that we're looking into as well at the moment by looking at stable isotopes of pilot whales and comparing those to mackerel and squid to learn more about their trophic relationships. For the killer whales, we learned that their occurrence did not appear to change over time, but that it showed seasonal and geographic variation. And it basically confirmed what we knew, that they are most frequently encountered in Vestmannaeyja and Breiðafjörður, which are these known major spawning and overwintering grounds for herring. And then sightings outside of these areas are quite sporadic. But whenever the two species co-occur, interactions were common. And these interactions appear to be antagonistic, and they appear to be similar to what has been reported from Norway and the Strait of Gibraltar. And previous studies had suggested several drivers for these interactions. So one of them is competition. So that could be competition for prey, for habitat, or feeding areas. And like I mentioned, there is a potential for overlap in the prey species or dietary overlap, but we are lacking clear evidence at the moment. Another possibility is that this behavior is based in predation. So in the Strait of Gibraltar, they did stable isotope analysis already, and they showed there's little dietary overlap between the two species. And so they suggested that these interactions were a mobbing behavior that is based on the historical presence of marine mammal-eating killer whales. There is little evidence of killer whales preying on pilot whales in Icelandic waters. Predation on mammals is relatively rare in Icelandic waters in general, and potential predation on pilot whales was only reported once. But there are some recent playback experiments that show that pilot whales can distinguish between fish and mammal-eating killer whales, and that they especially exhibit this active intimidation strategy against the fish-eating killer whales because they might perceive them as a lower threat. So it's possible that we observe something similar in Iceland, but yeah, at the end of this, we have a lot of new questions really that we need to answer. So we actually have a lot of cool work that we're working on right now. So, like I said, our results indicate that the interactions are complex, with the response of the killer whales varying, and the triggers for the different types of responses are still quite unclear. It is possible that the group size plays a role, so we definitely want to continue studying these interactions. But previous studies have also shown that sound seems to be very important, as indicated by these playback experiments. And so that's actually one thing that I'm working on for the rest of my PhD, and that's doing playback experiments where we play the sound of pilot whales to killer whales to test their response and to test the role of these acoustic cues in these interactions. And just to show you why we think sound might be important, I'm going to play you a bit of pilot whale sounds. We had some technical issues, so I'm going to play this over my phone, over my headphones, and hope that you can hear it. So this is what the pilot whales sound like when they approach killer whales. Yeah, so it's a real underwater cacophony, and killer whales are very vocal species themselves, so it is clear that sound is very important to them. And then, of course, there is this whole question about the prey that we're trying to tackle, for example, with the stable isotope analysis. So yeah, I'm just going to say stay tuned for some really cool publications that are coming. Hopefully in the next few months and the next few years. And just before I end, I just wanted to share a little extra snippet with you because we had a very cool observation that we made just 2 weeks after we published the paper. We saw a pilot whale calf that was swimming with a group of killer whales. And some of you might have seen there was a recent note that also reported a similar sighting of a pilot whale calf with killer whales from the west of Iceland. And our sighting was in the south. And during our encounter, we didn't see any other pilot whales in the area. We followed the group for about 3 hours. And as you can see in the photos, the pilot whale calf seems to be a newborn. It's very small and still has some fetal folds. The group was quite surface active and it appeared very playful and curious. But yeah, we are still evaluating all the data we have. We have a lot of stuff to go through, photos and videos and acoustics. So yeah, again, stay tuned for the publication of that. And with that, I just wanted to thank my supervisors and my co-authors on the paper, and also everyone involved in the fieldwork, because there were a lot of people helping to gather this data over the years. And I also wanted to thank the whale watching companies that shared their data with us, and of course the funding agencies. And if you want to stay tuned for all these cool publications that I keep promising, feel free to follow the project on social media, and you can also follow myself on Twitter. And of course, if you have any questions, you can email me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Anna. That was incredible. I really, really enjoyed the sound, and I'm really glad that it worked this time.
Great.
That was great. Everything went well. The video was perfect. So yeah, so we have a bunch of different questions. We also have questions coming in the Facebook chat. So just so you guys know, on the Facebook chat, live, we are sharing your questions to Crowdcast. You will not be able to ask them live, but we can ask them for you if they get upvoted. So it looks like we have, I think we have a question about early career academics, and I would kind of like to end with that question, if that's okay, for Erin.
Yeah.
So I will invite you on screen maybe a bit later, if that's okay. Maybe we can focus on the science first. So there is a question from Jared, who I will invite on the screen. And it seems, okay, accepted and connecting. So Jared will be able to ask his question.
Hey. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
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 Yeah. Hey, thanks for that presentation, Anna. That was great. I actually have lots of questions, but the one that I typed in was about confirmed cases of killer whales preying on pilot whales. Are there known confirmed cases of that?
There are a couple of cases. There was this review from '91, I think it is, that looks at all the interactions that killer whales have with different species. And there were a few cases, I think there's maybe 3 or so, where they were attacking pilot whales. I'm not sure if they were really confirmed kills in them, but I think there's one where they say there was blood in the water or something like that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if any.
But there's nothing that is, at least nothing I know of, that is more recent.
Yeah, I wonder if any of those were similar cases. I know that in the past there was evidence of humpback whale attacks by killer whales, and it turned out that in retrospect, some of those were just incidents of humpback whales actually being attracted to mammalian killer whales during a kill or a prey sharing event. And there's a lot of interactions between individuals, and though it kind of looks like the killer whales might be attacking the humpbacks, but I've seen them happen personally, and it's like the humpbacks are actually coming in, chasing down the killer whales, and then when they get to them, then they start interacting with each other, which kind of leads to my next question is, what do you think would happen if they caught up to them?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's something that we have actually never observed. So usually the way even the chases kind of end is that both of the species sort of slow down, and usually at that point they are some distance apart.
Yeah.
But I have no idea what's going to happen if they actually meet up.
Okay.
But hopefully we will be around to document it.
Yeah. Well, good luck. You can bring me back on later if you want. We're all watching here in the office, and we've got a few more questions, but yeah, feel free to circle back.
Sounds great. Okay, thanks, Jared.
Yeah.
All right, so we had another question that got upvoted. It's from the Facebook chat, so I think I will ask it. The question is from Marilyn James McFadden, and she's asking if you will be using eDNA to identify the squid or fish species that they may be feeding on.
I'm not totally sure if there's a plan to use eDNA. I would have to ask around in my team. But what we're using right now is the stable isotopes, because we are getting squid samples from all around the country from the Marine Research Institute, so they do these surveys where they fish for different types of species, and if they get squid, they give them to us. So that's what we have right now, but for sure in the future that would be cool to look at. But I'm not very familiar with eDNA, so I don't know much about that.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you so much. I hope that answered your question, Marilyn. And I will move those questions to the answer tab.
It looks like the next one is also from Facebook. The next uploaded one, and that's from Ferdinando. And he's asking, do pilot whales mob other species, such as humpback whales?
Yeah, so actually there have been quite a few interactions between pilot whales and other species. So they do seem to be a bit of the bully of the sea. So, for example, there are interactions with humpback whales. There are also interactions of the short-finned pilot whales with sperm whales, for example. So they take on big species as well. But most of the descriptions we have from that are quite opportunistic data collection. So often we have one observation. But that's actually something that we are also working on. My supervisor is working on a review to look into interactions of pilot whales with other species. Because, it seems to be that there's quite a lot of reports from different places, and most of them are, single instances, or maybe something that was observed 2 or 3 times. But maybe if we put them all together, we can make something of it.
Oh, okay. Hopefully that answers his question. Thank you.
Then we had another question from the Facebook chat from Vivi, who says, greetings from Finland. Have there been any cases of killer whales hunting on pilot whale calves?
Ooh, good questions. Nothing that I know of. Like I said before, to Jared's question, there are very few cases of killer whale predation on pilot whales. I don't remember reading that any of them specifically involve there are any observations of that.
Thank you. Then we had a question from Ellie, who won't be able to come on screen, so I'll let Naomi ask the question.
Yeah, okay. So it states, you mentioned that long-finned pilot whales are the only marine mammal species known to be attracted to killer whale vocalizations. Do you know if similar experiments have been done in the Northeast Pacific region? I'm especially in thinking about small cetaceans who seem to be looking for interactions with northern resident killer whales in British Columbia waters.
Oh, that's a very specific question. I know there were playback experiments done with seals, where they played the killer whale sounds to them, and they didn't like that. They have been doing these types of experiments with killer whale sounds to quite a lot of species, like gray whales and humpbacks, and basically you name it. But I don't know if there were any. I don't think there were any that were to smaller cetacean species or to smaller marine mammal species. I don't think so. It might be more difficult just logistically to do that.
All right,
okay,
thank you. There is one from Gabrielle. I will invite you on screen. see, so we have a person connecting at the moment. Maybe while they're connecting, I can ask another question. I saw a quick question in the chat here asking if you use drones to record the interactions.
Yeah, it's something that we keep thinking about and that we really want to do. Our main issue with drones in Iceland is the wind. We have very few days where, you know, the weather is good enough that we can use drones. We have used them a bit in the past. But yeah, so far we haven't been able to do that, but that would be very cool to do in the future for sure.
Awesome.
Oh, hello. Oh, and he's gone again.
Oh.
Let's try again. Sometimes the browsers are a bit
Finicky.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, sorry. Hi. Love the presentation, and I have a question about the last case you showed on it, about the calf swimming with the killer whales. Is there any kind of have you ever seen any kind of adoption behavior within killer whales? Because I have seen in belugas, but I haven't even heard of this happening before with orcas. And do you guys believe it could be this case, or would be I don't know? Would you have another kind of behavior like a hostage within the calves, so they can re-aggregate the pilot whales? I don't know. Thank you.
Yeah. So right now we really don't know what to make of this. And we are just right now reviewing the video footage that we have from the event, because that could have some better clues to what was going on. Because in the photos, you saw two of the photos. You see that the calf is in between with the killer whales, but you don't really see very much. So yeah, for now we don't really have any evidence for either of these options. As for adoption by killer whales, I don't know of any cases, at least not of other species. I don't know if you girls know any cases. No.
Yeah, as far as I know, no.
No. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so I guess we just have to wait and see. And it was just one incident for now, and we have observed a lot of these interactions, but we've only observed this calf incident once. So for now we can really not say very much about it, but hopefully in the future we can let you know.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for coming on.
Then it looks like we have a couple of questions from the Facebook chat, and I'm not sure which one to choose because they all have the same rating.
I guess just in progression, right?
There was one that asked if you use satellite tagging in your research from the chat.
No, we don't use satellite tagging right now. We do use suction cup tags, so like E-tags or CANS tags that stay on for a couple of hours, but no satellite tags at the moment.
Thank you. Then Alice had a question. I will try to invite you on screen. Let's see if it works. See if Alice accepted and she is on her way. In the meantime, I have other Facebook questions to copy paste.
Yeah, not not totally sure. I know there was a recent study actually from the Western Atlantic, where they showed that the pilot whales were moving north faster than their prey species were. So they kind of related that to climate change and to the increasing water temperatures. So that is an option, yeah. And we know that the waters around Iceland have also been increasing in temperature in recent years. So yeah, that is definitely a possibility.
All
Okay,
right,
cool.
and we have
Thank you.
Alice with us.
Hi. Hi. I was wondering if alloparental care was a common occurrence amongst orcas, and if you had heard of the sightings, and with which species, of course.
I don't think it's very common. I don't know if I'm not very familiar with this part of the literature. If there are any occurrences within the species, but with other species, I don't think there are any other occurrences. But again, we don't know if this was parental care. We really don't know right now. I don't think we can really say that. Yeah.
And is it documented from intra-specific alloparental care, or is it studied right now a lot or not?
You mean if it's studied a lot in killer whales, when they take care of other species?
When they take care of a killer whale health that isn't theirs.
Ah, okay. I don't know if people are looking into this. I haven't heard of any research on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
Oh yeah, somebody in
Thank
the chat
you.
is saying that they remember reading
Yes, some
about
people are having.
the Dow's porpoise that was sighted swimming with killer whales in Alaska.
So good. I think we'll ask maybe one other question, and then we'll move on to our last question from Erin, and then I think that will be it. And if people have additional questions, of course, they can reach out to you through Twitter and ask you directly. So Naomi, I'll let you go.
Okay, so there's a question from Lou, that said, love the presentation. I have seen similar behavior with mammal-eating KWS with pilot whales, killer whales, okay, thank you, and pilot whales in Bremer Bay, Western Australia. The pilot whales in groups of 100 to 200 seem to chase away the killer whales in that area. The theory I heard was the noise of the pilot whales give the location of killer whales away to their prey, the beaked whales. The theory wouldn't apply to fish-eating killer whales, though, would it?
Ooh, long question. I'm trying to follow. Yeah, I don't think that would apply in this case, because the killer whales that we have here, they feed mostly on herring, and while herring can hear, the killer whales make a lot of noise by themselves when they are feeding. It's when they are most chatty here in Iceland. So there wouldn't really be an additional information from the pilot whale sounds in this case. I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Erin, I'm inviting you on screen. Let's finally. Let's see if it works. Erin accepted. She should be appearing on screen very soon. Thank you for answering all these questions, Anna.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for your presentation as well.
Thanks.
Hi, Erin.
Hi. Thank you for the talk. It's great, so interesting. My question was about, as early career academics, And as women in STEM, do you have any advice for other young women or other people from marginalized groups who have an interest in pursuing graduate studies in cetology or related to the field?
Okay,
So
the
who wants
end
to
of
go
your question
first?
was a bit quiet. I couldn't quite hear that.
We have the written questions. I muted
Okay.
you, Erin, because there was a lot of echo. So didn't want to be rude, but if you're muted, that's why. So do you have any advice for other young women or folks from marginalized groups who want to pursue graduate studies in or related to cetology? Who wants
That's
to start?
a tough question. Maybe you guys want to start?
I would say, well, first of all, as women, and at least that's from my experience, we've been told many times over that we would not achieve much. At least Naomi and I heard it a couple times, and and I think that's absolutely wrong, and I think that should not discourage you from anything. And I know that can be really hard to keep being motivated when you hear comments like that, or when you face discrimination, or when you're from a marginalized group who does not have the same access to academia as other groups. I would say, of course, I never give up. That's kind of an obvious advice from me, but the next step would be to really try to mobilize everything, all your knowledge, all your skills, and apply them to your dream. So if you can't really make it into academia just yet, you could go into some kind of jobs where you could develop the skills necessary to get into academia. And I know that more and more academics are looking for not really unusual, but profiles that are a bit extraordinary from people that have maybe different experiences, different skill sets. And so I think that keeping your eyes on the goal and working on these skills that can be transferred to academia would be a good place to start.
I definitely agree with Anais. It's kind of something that we've seen with even our own whale scientists that we show on our website, on our blog. A lot of them came from various different backgrounds, had different upbringings, different ways of getting to cetacean research or academia. It's one of those things, Anais is very correct. It is difficult, it is hard, but keeping your eye on that prize and just kind of taking any opportunity that might seem weird, might seem a little different, but taking those opportunities and really trying to make the most of them and putting your best foot forward always helps. Easier said than done, I know, but it's just one of those things, just gotta persevere. It's really.
Yeah, and I think I would maybe add, because I think those are very good points, but what I also found very helpful is trying to find your crew. So yeah, find people that you like to work with, and I would even say those are more important than the actual topic that you're going to work on, because if you have supportive people around you, you will get much further. And find some friends that help you. Like a lot of my friends, for example, in university, there are not that many people here that study whales. They study birds, they study fish, but we have the same kind of issues as PhD students. So we connect on a different level, and I think that is super helpful.
I totally agree with that.
Here, I'll unmute you, Erin. There you go. Sorry, you can go ahead.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of your insight, and I find it really inspiring to hear from you all today. Thank you.
Thanks. And
thank you,
Erin, if you don't mind me asking, what stage are you at in your studies?
So I have my Bachelor of Science, and I'm currently working as a biology technician for my university, and so helping prepare and manage the undergraduate biology labs that have a focus on plants, invertebrates, things like that, dissection. So I'm very happy to be, I'm really happy to be to have stepped into this role immediately after my degree. So getting those really, those kind of harder skills. So.
Definitely
Oh, that's
useful
awesome.
skills.
Yes. And transferable skills.
Yeah,
Yes.
and also just to be learning from all of my colleagues, so from professors that I took courses from, but also other technicians in different departments within the faculty. So it's very. Thank you again.
Very cool.
Thank you for asking your question.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so I think we're reaching the end of our session. Thank you so much, Anna, for this wonderful presentation and for answering all these questions.
Thanks for inviting me.
Of course. and then again, if anybody wants to reach out to Anna, you can do it through Twitter. Here, maybe I will include your little handle here. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
And please come back for the second episode of this season. It will be on April 20th, and we will talk about bowhead whale feeding ecology with early career researcher Tommy Pontbriand, who is working with Fisheries and Oceans Canada. So it's all Canadian Arctic bowhead whales and how we can use stable